They said the Han house woke up before the city did, and that was almost true. The heating pipes clicked in the floor like someone practicing scales. The paper doors sighed when the morning wind slid down from the mountain, and the sparrows rehearsed the day from the pine behind the kitchen. Yuna woke before all of them. She washed her face in water so cold it convinced the skin to start again, tied her hair with a ribbon nobody noticed, and pressed her palm to the warm floor as if to greet the heartbeat of the house. "Be gentle," she whispered to herself, "and be firm where gentleness won't hold." "Gentle?" Aunt Myung said the first week Yuna arrived, her laugh soft as a ladle hitting a pot. "In this house you will need elbows." "I'll use my hands for holding," Yuna answered, and the cook snorted and patted her shoulder with a palm that could lift an ox. The Han house moved like weather. Madam Shin ran everything with a sigh that could slice fruit. Chairman Han Jae-ho floated on phone calls like a leaf on a current of meetings. Their daughter Hyejin had followers instead of friends and a ring light instead of a window. Their youngest Min-jae was 8 and sticky with tangerine most days. He asked questions faster than sparrows pecked rice. The driver, Mr. Park, was always 5 minutes early. The gardener, Mr. Go, hummed Buddhist chants to the peonies, and the security manager, Director Choi, wore suspicion like cologne. On Yuna's second day, Min-jae padded into the kitchen in pajamas and stared at her as she wiped the counter. "Are you poor?" he asked, thumb orange. Yuna knelt, wiped the juice from his hands, and thought of the right kind of truth. "I grew up by the sea," she said. "There we measured things with the wind. Today's wind is medium." "How big is a medium wind?" "Big enough to dry tears," she said, and he grinned like someone who had already been forgiven for something. Yuna's room sat above the pantry, a narrow space where the smell of ginger climbed the stairs like a shy child. On the shelf she kept one treasure, a chipped cup painted with a single camellia. Her mother had sipped barley tea from it in the winters when breath made clouds. The cup carried a crack the shape of a river that changed direction. "We'll change gently," Yuna told the cup each night. "Not because the world asks, but because it's the only way to stay ourselves." Kindness in rich rooms came with rules. It wore shoes inside the house and asked for impossible tasks with please. It smiled at staff with teeth and frowned with eyes at the first scratch on a surface that could buy a bicycle. The week the chairman hosted a charity dinner, Yuna learned the choreography of quiet. Lift plates when laughter hit the second syllable of the loudest guest. Refill wine during applause. Move like a shadow that knew when to step aside so ego could pass. She memorized fingerprints by the heat they left on glass. "Neutralize the ribbon," Madame Shin said, as she walked through the kitchen without stopping, eyes flicking over everything and missing nothing. "Yes, madam," Yuna said, and tucked the ribbon into her pocket, then tied it around the camellia cup later, telling it, "We're neutralized where they look. We can be our own color where they don't." On a rain-heavy afternoon, Mr. Go showed Yuna how to sharpen shears. "A clean cut is kinder," he said, testing the blade against paper. "Frayed stems invite rot. Remember that with people. Sometimes you have to cut lies so truth can land." "Is kindness a blade or a bomb?" Yuna asked. "It's both," he said. "Blade first, bomb second." That evening, thunder sewed the clouds together, and the gate buzzer rang. A driver from another house stood drenched and frantic. "I lost," he began. Yuna held up the wallet she had just found near the side entrance. "It waited for you," she said. He exhaled like someone ending a long swim, bowed too low, pressed the card into her hand. "If you ever need minutes returned to you, call," he said. "I drive people who think they own time. They don't." She tucked the card into her camellia cup, thinking not of favors but of the way good deeds carry their own light. Days stacked like rice in a jar. Yuna learned Madam Shin's footsteps, light but final, and the way Chairman Han hummed when he typed, one note lower when angry. She learned that Hyejin's had 7 meanings, each ruder than the last, and that Mr. Park swore only with his eyebrows. She learned how to make space around rage without letting it take the room. She also saw Hyejin up close. The curated smiles, the captions that made pain look like perfume, the careful cruelty that came from never having to ask for anything twice. One night, close to midnight, Yuna found her in the back hallway, leaning against the wall like a painting put at the wrong angle. Hyejin's hand shook. "Water?" Yuna asked. "Air," Hyejin said, pressing her palms to her chest. Yuna opened the courtyard door. The dark smelled like pine and suggestions. Hyejin breathed like someone who had been held underwater for a count too long. "I need you," she said without looking at Yuna. "To not tell anyone I was out. If my mother thinks I was with a friend. He needed help." Yuna waited. The storm tried to decide whether to come back. "Promise," Hyejin said, still not looking at her, as if direct eyes might make the words heavier than she could carry. "Your staff. You keep things. That's your value." "I keep what doesn't harm," Yuna said, thinking of Mr. Go's blade and balm. "I promise to protect you from humiliation, not from consequence." Hyejin's laugh was sharp. "Words," she said, and flicked her hand as if to wave away definitions. "Promise anyway." "I promise to hold your secret," Yuna said slowly, "until keeping it hurts you or someone else. Then I promise to help you carry the truth." "You sound like a monk," Hyejin muttered. "I sound like someone who knows secrets rot when sealed too tightly," Yuna replied. Hyejin made a face, but she looked less like falling. "Thank me," she added, surprising herself. Hyejin blinked. "What?" "Thank me," Yuna said again. "It will remind you I did something for you if you ever feel like spitting at me." Hyejin's mouth twitched. "Thank you," she said, like a tourist pronouncing a difficult phrase. Yuna bowed slightly. "Good. Now sleep." The week slid forward. The house prepared for a donor dinner that would make the newspaper. Flowers arrived the size of bicycles. "Remove anything gaudy," Madame Shin said. "White orchids. White is serious." She touched her lapel. "Bring me my mother's hairpin from the study." The hairpin had its own stories. Carved of jade and pearl in the shape of a camellia, it had anchored 3 generations of hair on days that demanded steel disguised as beauty. Aunt Myung kept it in a velvet box, in a drawer, under a lock, inside a desk. "It's not the money," she told Yuna the first time she showed her where it slept. "It's the ancestors." Yuna went to the study and returned with the box. Madame Shin took the hairpin and held it near the window. "It was my mother's spine on difficult nights," she said, not to Yuna. "If a person wears something like this and chooses a lie anyway, the lie will weigh double." She fastened it, and for a second she looked like someone who had swallowed a lighthouse and found it sat well. The dinner went as such dinners do. Compliments wrapped like gifts with receipt slips inside, laughter that sounded like people counting, speeches that thanked donors for their vision while describing the poor as if they were weather. Yuna moved through it all like a river around rocks. When the plates were stacked and the doors finally sighed closed, the house exhaled. In the morning, the house inhaled with a choke. The hairpin was gone. Silence stood up and took a chair at the breakfast table. Madame Shin's mouth became a line that did not invite questions. Chairman Han looked at his phone as if it could call back a moment where the hairpin still existed. Hyejin, already done with makeup, filmed nothing and bit her lip. Minjae asked, "Can we look under the couch?" Director Choi arrived with a clipboard and a smile that meant he smelled a narrative he could control. "It is probably a simple misplacement," he said, tone-oiled. "Still, procedure requires..." "Find it," Madame Shin said, not loudly. The word slid like a knife across bread. The staff searched everything that could be opened without destroying something that cost a salary. Drawers, pockets, laundry baskets, vases too serious to hold flowers. "Who set the tea in the study after dinner?" Director Choi asked, pen ready to log guilt. Eyes shifted. Yuna had. Who else entered? He asked the air, and the air said nothing helpful. I will check rooms, Director Choi said to no one in particular, which is what a person says when they mean the small rooms, not the ones with views. Start with mine, Yuna said, because that would have been the line her mother wanted. She led him up the narrow stairs. He opened drawers. He looked under the bed at dust arranged like constellations. He saw the camellia cup and the business card inside. Friends? He said, peering. Someone whose wallet I returned, Yuna said. The card is a souvenir of remembering who I am. He pursed his lips as if he had tasted sincerity by accident. We will continue, he said, already writing a story in his head where the conclusion didn't require facts. They found nothing but work and carefulness. It did not matter. In houses like this, when an object goes missing, silence becomes rumor, and rumor becomes a story people prefer to truth. By evening, Yuna could feel the looks. Not everyone looked, and not every look cut, but enough did. Aunt Myung pressed a dumpling into Yuna's palm like a talisman and whispered, when people can't find an object, they look for a throat to put their hand around. Keep breathing. Mr. Go sharpened his shears without looking up and said, Remember blade then balm. Mr. Park said nothing, which is what some men say when what they want to say is, I will drive through a wall for you.